Today we're sitting down with Jas Takhar, a real estate broker, a sales strategist, a business operator, and podcast host who's been helping several hundreds of families across the Greater Toronto market in purchasing their homes, but more importantly, has been creating leadership within his own organization, has been making a massive impact, helping companies and individuals create content and education for their audiences. In today's episode, Rich and I really go through the 3 keys to success in life, but also 3 keys to success as a sales strategist. We look forward to having this conversation and having you learn a little bit more about this essence, this pure DNA, hard work, hard-nosed effort that Jas Takhar brings to entrepreneurism. Jas, thanks for joining us on the Entrepreneurs United podcast. We've been looking forward to meeting with you and speaking with you. Love looking at your background from what you've done in real estate, all the families you've impacted, the number of transactions you've done, the size of the team you have with over 55 realtors, but then also starting a media company. There's so much going on here. Before we get to what you're doing today, I really want you to walk us back through your entrepreneurial roots. Take us all the way back to your beginnings as an entrepreneur, maybe as you were growing up, and how you came on this path and journey to where you are today.
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate you guys having me on. But for me, I always wanted, I knew I was going to be in the sales and service industry. In fact, I actually thought as a 12-year-old, I was going to be selling newspapers for the rest of my life, because that's the first time that I got a taste of getting paid for something that I enjoyed to do. But B, I actually loved the fact that I got to meet a bunch of people by knocking on doors, asking them to subscribe to newspapers. But the second I got paid for it, I was like, oh, this is game over. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But within about 2-3 years, just like anything else, I needed a new challenge. I went into selling shoes. And for some of your older listeners, they'll get the joke of the fact that it wasn't the Al Bundy type of shoes that I was selling. It was more helping marathon runners and sprinters. And then I went into the banking industry for about 3 years in the sales and service aspect of when telephone banking and internet banking started, selling cars at 19 for about 3 years. But then 17 years ago is when I knew that the jump that I wanted to make was to the place where, the average person, the biggest purchase that they'll ever make in their life is a home or a condo or some type of investment in real estate. I knew I needed to see if I can conquer that. And that's why I made the jump to real estate. I didn't really think I was going to be building out a team and starting another business, something that you mentioned in the intro there. I just wanted to be a sales guy with any type of ceiling, right? What always attracted me to the sales industry was the fact that there was no ceiling. There's nobody who can tell me at any point that you can only make so much. And that was something that pulled me towards this industry. What I came to learn is the fact that, wow, to really take this to the next level, if I can get some people that are bought in at the same level that I am at, and that's going to be really the best way to scale, I got to do that as quickly as possible. That's when I started to grow out the team. And then obviously another business that came out of the real estate company as well.
That's fantastic. So to kind of bring it back full circle, you are always on the go, right? Selling newspapers, selling cars, let's go, trying to really hustle to figure out, okay, how am I going to make this thing happen? But I want to come back to what you're doing now today. So today you have a very large real estate enterprise, I believe, with many realtors that are under your kind of leadership. You've also started a media company. I'd like to understand why you did that. I think I have a good inkling as to why you did that. But tell us a little bit more about your current operations today, the current size of it, the current size of your team, what you're trying to accomplish with your media company. Where are you going, Jas?
Well, first and foremost, with the real estate company, we have 54 agents that are on our team right now. Say our team, myself and my business partner. And within the real estate organization, we also have a leadership structure. So you have the 2 co-founders, and then you have a VP, a director of team operations, and a director of concierge services, and then the 54 agents, and then we have about 4 admin staff in the real estate team. I'm very, very blessed, grateful, proud of those 54 agents, because we collectively get to help a little over 700 families every single year with the process of buying, selling, are investing. And that, for your listeners and viewers, is not to impress them. It's to impress upon them where all this data is coming from. Why am I even on this podcast? Why am I even talking about entrepreneurship? Because it didn't start out there. Like, we didn't have 54 agents. We weren't helping 700 families, but we are there now. And it came with a lot of hard work, perseverance, and really discipline at the end of the day. 4 years ago, I heard the word called podcast. Had no idea what it was. I went onto Googled it, and said, "What the heck is this word?" And it's like, "Oh, okay, it's almost like an on-demand radio show, essentially." And you can, being of East Indian descent, my mother negotiating over apples back home, when I heard it was free and I can distribute it right across the world on the iTunes and the Spotify's, and the fact that I didn't need to be on camera, because that's not something that I was comfortable with 4 years ago, I knew this was going to be the medium that I was going to choose to start to control the narrative of real estate, like the buying, selling, and investing process of real estate to my clients. I was going to use podcasting as the medium. What then happened, about a year in, I got some big interviews. It just me being who I am as a salesperson, and following up and reaching out to people, not really taking no as an answer. It's more of like not yet kind of thing. I got a bunch of big guests, and my team around me was like, "Well, dude, we got to put this on camera." So I started to put it on camera, brought that footage back. A guy in my office who's with me still, he's my creative director. He's like, "Well, not sure if you understand, but we can chop this up," meaning we can put it into little pieces, 3-4 clips out of the 30-minute conversation. "Oh, by the way, I can maybe do some like quote overlays for you," like meaning like you took some pictures, I'll put some images together. "Oh, we can also take the audio file, and put that into a software that spits out all of everything that was said, and now we can put it out as a blog." So my mind was blown at this point. Like, I was like, wow, I did one 30-minute conversation, I got 15 pieces of content. This is awesome. So I started to put out 15 pieces of content a day on all the platforms. My 54 agent team is under an organization that consists of 1,500. There's 1,500 under the umbrella of a company called Royal LePage Signature here. All these other agents in my office, and then I started to slowly reach out to others in the city. There's 76,000 real estate agents in the Greater Toronto area, so there's a big pool of prospects. They started to call me and ask me, "How are you doing all this? Can you like do this for us?" I was like, "Well, I have no appetite to do this for you, but here's what I did." Like, I literally put a 23, 29 page guide out for free. I didn't charge anybody. I had no thoughts of starting another company. I had I had so many headaches with the real estate company. I had no appetite for another one, and especially in client service, right? And so, but then I got asked too many times. It almost was slapping me in my face. My VP in my real estate company has she has an MBA in marketing and branding. She's telling me every time she goes to the bathroom, all the women in the bathroom are asking her, how's that guy Jas been doing that? That VP helped me kind of start it and do a lot of the legwork at the start. And then I said, "Listen, let's try this for a couple of agents." We did it for a couple of agents, and then that turned into 5 and 10 and 15, and now we're about 25, 30 agents on a monthly basis come to us, and real estate agents specifically, only right now, come to us to help them create content.
Wow. If I go back through the number of things you've been involved with, you went from newspapers to shoes to banking to cars to real estate to now podcasts and marketing. One of the quotes I was thinking of while I was listening to you that I think you embody is one door closes, the other one opens. There's another one that opens. But part of the problem with that is so many people in that phrase focus on the closed door and mourn about the lost opportunity and don't focus enough on what door has just opened. It occurs to me, you're a master through your career of recognizing the next open door when it presents itself to you. If that resonates for you, I'd love to hear your take on it, because that's the feeling I was getting as I was listening to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really even thought about it from that perspective, so I appreciate that. But it definitely resonates with me. In fact, if I think back to to those times that you mentioned, newspapers, shoe sales, banking, car sales, real estate, and now media. Other than real estate, all the other times it was about a 2.5 to 3 year period, minimum 2.5 years, and then up to upwards to about 3 years that I spent in each of those places. So it wasn't like it was a 6 month stint. It wasn't like something that I just tried, didn't like it. And I think that's important because at that time of about 2.5, 3 years, I started to get this pit in my stomach. Like I knew something was wrong. I knew I wasn't either challenged, or I just wasn't having fun anymore. And so my brain now, like looking back, as we all know, hindsight's 2020. My brain just started to look for those new opportunities. The opportunities always existed. The bank was always there. The car dealerships were always there. Those jobs were always there. But I always point to the front part of the brain, which is the RAS, the RAS, reticular activator system, where that I actually turned it on because I knew that there was something missing. Then my brain starts to look for the opportunity. Like when you buy a brand new red car, you see red cars all over this place. Pregnant women see pregnant women all the time. They were all there before, but now our brains turned on to it. That once I started to realize, like, okay, this, using your words now, that door was closing, I started to look for all the open doors around me. And then I was able to just choose, luckily enough for me. And I won the lottery back when I was born, because the family that I was just born in, like my father was a taxi driver, my mother was a factory worker their whole life, grade 4 and grade 8 educations, but they poured me with love till this day. And so I think I won the lottery back then, but I really also won the lottery with the fact of the one skill I was given. For the 10,000 things I suck at, 97% of things that I suck at, like hanging this up. I think it's double-sided tape, but I probably have problems hanging up these signs behind me. The fact that I was given the skill and the talent of sales, communicating, being okay to hear no, picking up the phone and asking. Like I have no shame asking the barista at Starbucks to give me a follow on my YouTube page. None. Zero. Doesn't even resonate with me why people would be scared to ask that, right? And so like that talent that I was given, I knew that I was always going to be in this industry.
Tell me about the 2.5 to 3 years. I want to do some quick math on the side. How many days a week are you working, or were you working in the 2.5 to 3 year stints?
Well, I mean, if you're in newspapers, I was 12 years old. And so aside from school, I went from school, soccer to newspapers. So do 10 hours.
10 hours a day?
At 12. 10 hours a week at 12.
10 hours a week. Got it. So let's say high school and beyond, how many days a week are you working?
Oh, 6 days a week.
6 days a week. How many hours a day?
60, 70. Well, go 60, 70 hours a week.
Okay. So if we take 3 years, we go 52 weeks a year times 60 hours a week times 3 years is 9,360 hours. That was my hypothesis. Is in the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell talks about it takes 10,000 hours. And for those that are just listening, he held up all 10 fingers.
Oh, I know the math. I know the
10,000 hours. So
yeah,
it's almost
100%.
like the way that you have worked, you got into something, you got into it long enough to master it, and then you moved on.
100%. Yes, exactly. And now what I haven't, like, I think the journey that I'm on now is to how can I develop other leaders? That's that's what I'm trying to master now. And I think that's going to take longer than 10,000 hours, in my opinion. But I know the exact same book that you're referencing. I love the author and I love the book itself as well. But I like in sales, I'm upwards to like 50,000 hours now. Right? But with that said, I've also realized how much I still have to learn, even in sales. I got a 21-year-old protege with me. He's probably going to make it into the screen some way, somehow, because he's walking around making phone calls. And this kid is like the guy that, he's my poster boy. I love him, teaching him everything that I know, spending, those 60, 70 hours with him a week. And I still hear him on a phone call that says something that I haven't tried before, and I've used it. And so what I'm trying to, I guess, really articulate to everyone is that once you've truly mastered something, you really come to realize how much you still have to learn.
Mm. And how many years are you into working towards mastery of developing leaders?
3 years.
Okay. You
It's been the real.
mentioned the reticular activating system, which works when you have your own clarity that the world is filtered so that you see things you didn't see before. They were always in your environment, but you're able to see them now. What is the process you use to get your own clarity about business opportunities?
If you're talking specifically about business, I actually think it starts more from a mindset and life perspective. And the way I start it, it always starts with gratitude for me. I start my day pretty much the same every single morning. Maybe if I had too much vodka the night before, it shifts things the next morning. But it generally starts with gratitude and completely loving myself in the morning and thanking. Now, for me, I have faith in someone above. Like there's more than to this world than just like us three right now. And so for me, it's God, and for somebody else, it might be the universe, it might be whatever it might be. For me, it is God, and I thank God for everything that I've been given, starting with my family, the breath that I was given. Like I'm consistently and constantly kissing myself and telling myself how much I love myself, because how can I love anybody before I actually love myself? I can't give you something that I haven't given myself yet. Fill your own cup before you start filling other people's. It's almost impossible to fill anyone else's if you haven't filled yours first. So for me, the process to your question starts with gratitude, because the second you're grateful, which I think so many of us have lost perspective, and they get pissed off because I don't know, I'm saying Starbucks because it's in my peripheral right now outside my window. But people get pissed off at the barista because they gave them soy milk instead of non-fat milk, and they throws them off for the rest of the day. But yet we forgot about the 1.7 billion people that don't have access to running water. And so for me, it starts with gratitude, and then once I'm at that process, now I'm going to start to put out the vibrations of what I want for the rest of my day. Meaning, I actually truly believe that the world is conspiring with me to get what I'm looking to get out of the day. So I know I want to help as many people and inspire as many people as possible. I just don't know how that's going to happen every single day. But I start my day thinking about it.
Yeah, I love that.
I have failed for 40 years to take over the world. And I'm going to wake up every morning trying to think that, just like Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs, that myself and my team is going to take over the world. I failed for 40 years. Let's see how it works out tomorrow.
Jas, I want to make a little bit of a hypothesis here that one of your key influencers is Gary Vaynerchuk.
100%. I had him on my podcast not too long ago.
Wow.
Sat with him in his office. He was great. Like he was great enough to allow myself and my crew to spend the rest of the day in his office. He told us to make ourselves at home. I told him I'm from an area called Rexdale in the north part of Toronto, where we're not afraid to ask for stuff. I definitely made myself at home in his office. I poked around into almost every employee there at his headquarters. From a content perspective, if there wasn't a Gary V, there wouldn't be a Jas. And I'm from a content perspective, I wouldn't be producing content if he wasn't doing it, because I didn't know what the word podcast was. I'd never heard of the word podcast in my life until I heard it from him. He made me do the deep dive into it. He gave me a content guide as well, that really put our business, our real estate business, on steroids, which started to give me a lot more credibility. Wanted like you guys to have me on your podcast, which then gave me confidence to start the media company.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've certainly been following him for quite a while. I love a lot of the things he talks about, certainly around gratitude and perspective that you just talked about. That's what resonated with me. But I have to believe you're the first person I've ever met who seems to be executing on the game plan he repeats over and over and over again. And just people aren't willing to do it, aren't willing to put in the work, aren't willing to produce the 15 pieces of content, aren't willing to do that type of stuff. So congratulations for that. But what was that key? What triggered for you to be like, you know what, I am going to follow this playbook and I am going to ask to get him on my podcast and I am going to get what drives that in you?
Well, I think I was definitely born with it. I mean, I can't even hide that fact. Like, look, when you see your father and mother, like, not having like, they can't speak the English language. Like, my mother till this day can't. My father knows a few words and stuff like that, right? Like, but they worked so hard every single day. Like, a taxi driver, not a lot of people know what you have to do to earn a living being a taxi driver. It's hard. My father worked 23 hours one day and didn't work the next day, but he was sleeping for 12, 13 to catch up on the 23 hours. No, and I'm not exaggerating by saying 23 hours. As a taxi driver, you need to work 23 hours to make some type of living. But then the next day you're sleeping. He also had 3 sons that he gave some love, like he gave love to. Like, and like, I'm not here as a 40-year-old saying my father never loved me. In fact, it's the other way around. My mother, as a factory worker, for 9 hours a day, stood up. They never gave her a chair to sit on. She's gone, like, she can't hear out of 1 year fully. The next year is like 50% ears down in terms of hearing because of the noise in the factory. Nobody ever told her to wear hearing aids. She didn't know. She came from India, didn't know that she needed to wear hearing aids. So you saw them work. I saw them work, pinch pennies. So the work ethic was always in me. I knew if I wanted something, I needed to actually put in the effort. So that's DNA stuff I'm talking about, right? Yep. But I think that like if I had to point to a catalyst, it would probably been this September of 2022 will be 5 years since my mentor and my older brother and was my business partner as well passed away tragically. He walked into a restaurant and never walked back out. Till this day, we never know what happened. In terms of he was literally shot in a restaurant. Was not involved in anything that was that deserved that. But yet still nobody knows what happened. That was definitely a catalyst. Like, I mean, I knew he was also the face of the company. So there was this gaping hole that was left. And he gave me all the tools for 13 years. I knew I had it in me. But I needed something to be mine. And the word podcast from Gary Vee, now looking back, was obviously that, because it gave me confidence, because my partner who passed away was just a beautiful soul and was amazing on screen and was amazing on stage. People ate up anything he said. They just loved his style. That wasn't me. I'm a closer. I'm a salesperson. And so I never cared for all that other stuff. But when I heard the word podcast and I didn't need to be on camera, it gave me this outlet. It gave me something that I could feel comfortable with, because for the 24 years before that, all I've ever done has been on sales calls. And so not that, nobody has ever told me I have the most sexiest, sultry voice in the world, but nobody on the flip side also said you have an ugly voice or it doesn't sound good. So I had some confidence with the word podcasting. Yeah. But then over time, now I need, there's 2-3 cameras on right now. I wish there was 7, because now, for everybody who's watching and listening, you don't need, this is from Dr. Martin Luther King, right? You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to see the first step. For me, the first step was podcasting. And then over time, I got more and more comfortable and got confident. Now I want more and more cameras on. And so I understand if you're not comfortable with something now, just take that first step.
Yeah, that's amazing. And thank you very much for sharing that personal story. So to recap just for a second here, so I grasp it, when you guys started Royal LePage Signature, it was really you and your brother, your mentor, if I'm not mistaken, and you guys were growing this business together. A tragic moment happens, obviously, that shakes up your life, and I'm sure the lives of many others. And, with that catalyst moment, you're now hearing this word podcast, you're hearing what Gary Vee has to say, and it sounds to me like you kind of said, all right, it's time for me to step up. I got to now be the face of this. I got to now take this, and you kind of put your foot down and said, okay, I'm going to take all this stuff that I have, my DNA, this catalyst, and I'm going to go make it happen. Is that kind of a fair recap?
It's 100% bang on the recap. You know, there was a lot of definitely nights that I wasn't sure if I should be doing this. What the heck am I doing this for? It doesn't even make sense. I don't even understand the social media stuff. Like, what is this all about? And who actually cares? Why does somebody want to listen to me? What does it really matter? But yet I just never gave up. I just never the why, because I knew that I wasn't going to let the 13 years that we built we built a good following, like just with our community, with events and stuff that we were doing. I wasn't just going to let that go by the wayside. And so that was really the why. But like, there was definitely a lot of sleepless nights in that recap for sure.
You know, you had mentioned just a moment ago, why would somebody want to listen to me? And the first thing that crossed my mind is, I'd love to hear your answer to that. What would be the top 3 things that you feel you have to give the world, and the world could benefit from listening up?
I think first and foremost, I'm like really good looking. So everybody who's taking their dog for a walk right now, go on my Instagram profile and check me out. Now, I think the number one would be that, like, I'm uneducated from a formal perspective. Okay, so I don't have nothing past a high school education. You said a couple of words. I was just chuckling to myself. I was like, man, if this guy ever asked me to spell these words, I would never know how to spell some of these words. You know, I use sometimes words out of context. I have a little bit of a stutter. And sometimes I have a lazy left eye that I was pretty much born with, couldn't get rid of. I've done, I don't know, 20,000 hours of video and webinars and stuff like that, but yet I'm born with sweaty hands. And so the first thing I would say to somebody is that, like, I'm just a regular guy. And yet I have found my passion and decided to go all in on that. And so I think whatever you have a passion in and that you like to do, I want to implore you, as you're listening and watching right now, to do that. And so hopefully my story inspires you one way or another. Number 2 would be that I've never had anything figured out. Your listeners can't obviously see, but above my right shoulder is a sign that says ready, fire, aim. So many of us have been taught to look before you leap, or don't pull the trigger until you have your target lined up. I'm here to tell you, in business, that shit doesn't work, because you will fall into paralysis by analysis. And I'm sure there's been times in your life, listeners and viewers, that has happened. But the best strategy that you can do is just pull the trigger as much as possible and figure it out and adjust along the way. And so the number 3 would be is that you cannot do this by yourself. You can do something small by yourself, but if you want to really touch a lot of people, you need to bring other guys and gals along the journey with you. And to do that, I find the best way to do that is to develop more leaders, which allows you to have more time to start to plot your next move. So if there's an art that you want to pick up on, it would be the art of delegation and leaving money on the table. Because that's why most people don't like to delegate, is because they don't want to leave money on the table. But I think if those are 3 things in my story that I hope people catch on to.
Yeah, that's great.
Did I articulate that well to you?
That was wonderful. And your number 1, you started with formerly uneducated, and you ended with follow your passion. And I think both of those may resonate with listeners who wish at one point they had a higher education level. And what you're saying is, don't wish that. wish that you understand your passion and go all in on it. What would be your advice to somebody on, they go, okay, got it, Jas. How do I know what my passion is? I don't know what my passion is. How do I know what my passion is?
Yeah, I don't know if I've figured that out yet. But I think one thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question, because I knew it for myself, so I want to be completely transparent with everybody. I never had to try to do the strategy that I'm going to suggest
You
to
never
people
had to
because
figure it out. Like you just
I
knew
never.
it.
I just knew it. I sold the newspaper, the first newspaper I sold, and I got paid. As I mentioned it to you guys, I was like, I'm selling newspapers forever. This is it. Like, that's it, mom, dad. Like, I'm done. I figured it all out. I figured out life. I'm gonna sell newspapers forever. Like, that's how much I thought I figured out my life at that age, right? But at the end of the day, I continued with sales. What I would say to people with that question is try a bunch of things, right? Like I always use the example, maybe because you can tell, the viewers can tell, I like food, so I'm always going to buffets. Where if you go to a buffet line, especially one that you've never, like a cuisine you've never tried. So let's say you never tried East Indian food, my type of food. And you got some butter chicken, you got goat meat, and these are the famous dishes, right? Butter chicken, goat meat, some dal, which is lentils, you got rice, and you got naans and all that stuff, right? And so if you've never eaten it, the best thing to probably do the first time you go to that line is take a little bit of everything. Just a little bit. Don't fill up your plate with all of it. Just a little bit of everything to see what you might like as the second plate. And then you realize you hate the lentils, but you love the goat meat and you hate the butter chicken. Great. The next time you go, you take a little bit more goat meat, you take a little bit more yogurt, maybe some salad. And so what I'm trying to articulate again is try a lot of stuff. Try sales, try podcasting, try cooking, try doing graphics, try being a videographer. And then whatever you like, then go like to my point earlier about not being educated. I hope people caught on the fact that I said not formally educated. I am very educated in sales, not only because of my experience, because I've divulged every book in like hard copy and audiobook format that is known to man when it comes to sales. Right? So I did educate myself. I have studied business like in the book format as well as experience. And so if you find that you love being a cinematographer slash videographer, I want you to read every book, watch every YouTube video, spend like that's what every see when you find your passion, it's not going to feel like work. So if you find that you love wanting to be a videographer, chances are you're not going to have a hard time getting up really early in the morning and watching a video on how to be a better videographer. You're probably going to have a very tough time going to sleep because all you want to do is watch another video on how to be a better videographer. So that's why it's so important in my eyes, because in my eyes to find your passion first, because the extra work that is needed to do something special will never feel like work to you. It will be like you're just living your hobby. In fact, most people won't even know the difference, like know when you're working and you're playing. And sometimes you might not even, like, am I working right now? Like, am I, like, like literally the time that I'm, like, for me, I could do this for hours and you're not paying me either. I don't care because I love it so much. Right. And so the question of how do I find my passion, if you don't already know, is try a lot of things. But I think, sitting with somebody literally in this chair yesterday, right across, like there's a set of couches in front of me here. And the gentleman was 60 years old and he's like, I'm running out of time. It's why I need to do, like he was talking about investing in real estate and I got to do this fast and I love doing it. I was like, look, man, I don't got a blue magic pill for you like Matrix and tell you that you can invest in a couple of properties here and make a couple of $1,000,000. In fact, it's probably going to take you 20 years to really build out the portfolio. And in fact, I want you to be prepared for that. And he's like, Jas, I'm going to be 80. I was like, yeah, but like if you look back from, you're 60 now, if you look back to being 30, so 30 years ago, like a lot has happened in your life. And I know it's gone by quickly, but it's still a pretty long time, 30 years. And he's like, yeah. I was like, well, I think it's safe to say you got another 30 years left in you. So like, again, going back to perspective, we kind of lost that, right? Like, and the fact that we want things so quickly, maybe it's because on Instagram you put up a post or on TikTok and you get a like right away. We get that instant gratification. We're used to that now. But finding your passion might take you a year, might take you 2 years, right? It's a matter of trying. And it's really the only way that I've kind of ever talk about and suggest to people, because I don't have maybe the right answer to it yet. But for me, it's just a matter of trying a lot of different things, seeing what you might like, and then pushing all those chips in and going all in.
I love your answer of just like at a buffet, try a bunch of things and see what you want seconds and thirds on. But I've got to ask a question that might be really risky if you're in for it. And you may have to expose people by name.
Got it.
So, who in the world do you know who doesn't like butter chicken? Butter chicken is amazing.
Hey, Steven, do you like butter chicken? Okay, so I was hoping he was going to say no, so I can't call him out. He doesn't.
Everybody
like
likes butter
Yes.
chicken, Jas.
So I'm like, hang on, my videographer on the other side of the screen, I don't think he's tried. Have you had butter chicken? No, he's never had butter chicken. So I'm going to take him out in a couple of days. Yeah, I agree with you. You have to. There has to be something wrong with you if you don't like butter chicken. I agree.
So Jas, I'd hate to go through this whole conversation with you, knowing that you spent your entire life trying to master sales, and not take the same question Rich asked you, but extend it straight to sales. What are 3 keys, maybe 4 or 5 if you want to go that far, but what are some really keys to sales success based on all the years of learning about sales tips for success?
50,000 hours.
Yeah. For number one, follow up. Number one, following up. Because I think it doesn't matter if it's selling a microphone, cars, real estate, insurance, media services. It's safe to say 95% of the time, the prospect's going to say no the first time they're asked, or they're going to say not yet, that they're not ready. And so your job as a salesperson is to be a machine when it comes into following up. And there's a skill to it. There's an art to it. There's a way of doing it where you're not being pushy, sleazy, or just being someone that's bothering the prospect. And the best way for that I have found, and I've done this for not the full 27 years, call it for 20 of those 27 years is when I probably picked up on it. And it's by simply asking if it's okay if you follow up. So when I ask Steven, are you ready are you thinking about possibly creating wealth in real estate right now by investing in real estate through what we think is the best way to invest in real estate, which is the buy and hold strategy? And Steven says no. That's awesome, Steven. Just out of curiosity, would you be okay if I follow up with you in the next 2 to 3 months, maybe by email or phone call, on invite to one of our live events? And if he says no, that's perfectly fine. 95% of the time, he's going to say, yeah, sure, follow up with me. Now, that's where 95% of salespeople drop off. They never call him again, ever. They just forget. Because now, Steven, because he said no, it's not the quickest sale for them, right? And so following up is number one. You have to be diligent when it comes to following up. Number two would be sorting and not convincing. Meaning, don't try to convince people to do business with you. Just sort to see if they're ready now, if they're ready in the next 6 months from now to a year. Or the third bucket that I put people in when it comes to my sorting, not convincing conversation is the delete button, because we've all gotten Mickey Mouse at hotmail.com or 1-800, the number doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so that's okay. Don't spend any time with people who don't want to talk to you. Or if they can't give you their name, which we run it, like, wait, you want to talk to me about doing business with me, but I can't get your first name? That's okay. It's okay. Here, in Toronto, there's 6.6 million people. I want all of them as customers. I'm just never going to get around to all of them, right? And so it's okay if you just sort and you don't convince. In 2022, my number 3 tip would be create educational content. Not call me for more information. Look what I just sold. listen to my testimonial from my client, and all that stuff, the three things that I just spoke about, is okay to put in your content, but that should be like 10% of your content. So 1 out of every 10 posts, 1 out of 10 podcasts that you do, because 90% of it should be educational. Educate your consumer about everything with that they need to know about your product or service, so they can feel like they made an informed quality decision themselves. And at the surface, most of us understand this, that when we walk into a store where they're selling shoes and the shoe salesperson says, "How can I help you?" Human nature is to say no, because it's the path of least resistance. So none of us like to be pushed to buy anything. So why not go to the other extent of that and give all the information up front for free? So then when the client is ready, the customer is ready, they go back to the person that they deem as the trusted authority. That would be my 3 things.
Yeah, and that's exactly why the barista who follows your YouTube page 10 years from now, when she buys a house, will be calling you guys.
I think so. I think doing this now for coming up to 4 years, I've got enough feedback in the thousands now that it's resonating with people. And so, sometimes I put out a video and I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna go viral, and you get like 2 views on it. Or then sometimes I put out a video and I was like, this video sucks, nobody's gonna want to watch this, but they felt that it was valuable, right? And then it gets shared 300 shares or something silly, you know what I mean? So we got enough and personally I've got enough feedback that the fact that, look, I said 1 out of 10, I'm probably closer. I'm really thinking this one through, because I want to make sure if somebody calls me out, I'm right. I think like 1 out of every 80 posts of mine have ever said DM me or call me.
Yeah.
Because my intent is, I don't care if you ever call me. Yeah. I just don't care, because I know someone else will. Like, I'll get the business at some point, maybe not from that person. So I went to the extreme of just telling everybody everything. Here's how you sell your own home. I wrote a book. It's called Real Estate Intelligence. It's not like for sale. I don't sell it. It's literally, I give it away for free to everybody. In the book, there's a section that's, I don't know, 20, 30 pages that talks about how to sell your own home without a real estate agent. I start the thing by saying, you don't need me. Here's some reasons why you might want to use a real estate agent, but by law, you don't need an agent. In fact, let me tell you everything that I do so you could do it on your own.
Yeah, I love that. So, Jas, along the lines of that book, in terms of where people can learn more about what you're doing and what content you're providing, how else can our audience get more of Jas?
To get into my world, as it's known, kind of Jas's world, I think the best way to do that is just Google my name. First name Jas, Jas, last name Takhar, Takhar, and you can make a decision on how you actually want to consume me. If you do think I'm good looking and you want to see more videos of me, go to my YouTube page and go to Instagram. If you want to see some images and that's how you learn, like infographics and all that kind of stuff, you can find that on some of my platforms. But if you just want to hear my voice, I got a podcast as well. And if you want to read a blog, you can catch that on my website as well. So I try to, again, completely follow that Gary Vee content model, and I let you make a decision on how you want to consume me, video, audio, or the written word.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you giving to everybody in terms of content and information. Taking this information from you today, I think is great. Love your keys to success. Love your sales tips and keys. Love you sharing your story too, of really that grind, that DNA that you built with, and also the catalyst sometimes in life we all need to kind of push us and drive us further. Jas, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciated being hosted by you guys. You guys rock, man.
Please stick around for a few more minutes while Rich and I break down this episode.
Rich, tons of energy, tons of drive, and I said it to him in this episode. This is the first person I've ever met that has followed a recipe that Gary Vaynerchuk has been talking about for years, which is go get it, make it happen, drive, create content, give content, start with gratitude, have perspective, follow your passion. So really impressed with what Jas has done and the catalyst that he shared with us about his brother passing and really putting him to the forefront of, look, I got to go now. It's time for me to step up. Was really heartfelt and a good side of, learning a little bit more about Jas as a person and what he's doing. So really impressed with just his drive to succeed and build something of significance.
Well, he obviously follows the 3 keys that he gave. He follows his passion. He does ready, fire, aim, which was funny. You and I kind of smirked at each other when he said that, because we were like, yeah, we've used that too. He had a poster. I've never seen a poster of it. He clearly follows that. And then he also follows that you can't do it by yourself. I didn't know he had 3 cameras going on him until he said it. And he's referencing, I mean, there were probably 4 or 5 people in the room. He's clearly not doing it by himself. Like, boy, does he lean into that. Follow your passion. Just go do it. Ready, fire, aim. It doesn't need to be perfect. And don't do it by yourself while you're at it.
Yeah, exactly. And it feeds back to what he's learned about creating sales success, is that he needs to create and give content and become an expert in his industry. By becoming an expert in his industry, I'm sure he gets called on for articles, for newspapers, for interviews on TV, for a whole bunch of other things. And that's how people remember him. I mean, I just love the story of, I have no problem asking the barista at Starbucks to follow me on YouTube, because that barista at Starbucks is one day going to buy a home. And if she's following me on YouTube, I'm going to be the expert she's going to want to rely on. But even a step further, writing a book to tell people how they can buy homes without using a realtor, and I'm going to share all this expertise with you, is a little bit of a Jedi mind trick, because we know people are lazy. They're not going to sell their own homes. They're going to hire the expert that they perceive as the expert in that space to represent them. So really love the fact that he's just giving, asking as well, asking for follow-up, asking for people to join him, asking, he's very aggressive in his sales stance in terms of, look, I want you to follow me. I want you to be there. I'm going to ask for the order. I'm going to ask for the follow-up. But on the same token, very willing to just give and become an expert in his industry.
And put out the educational content up front. And he makes a good point. Somebody comes in as a salesperson and they make a pitch and they talk about all the reasons why to use them, and then they ask for the order. It's like, but you had to engage, and everybody had to take time together to be able to do that. Why don't you just give them all that information up front? So by the time they come to you, like, they basically have already purchased you. They're confident in their decision to use you.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll bring one last piece, because this is something that I remember you doing sales training for our teams way back, 25 years ago, and just talking about 95% of the people are going to say no.
Yeah, right.
And I remember you talking about that as well. But the difference between a great sales rep and a not great sales rep is they expect the no 95% of the time, and they use that as, okay, now we can start the conversation. And they try and engage that prospect in a future conversation to continue to stay front of mind. Ask for that follow-up like you would ask, because 95% will allow you to follow up with them if done in a classy, professional manner. And then you continue to educate them, continue to build that reputation, that rapport that eventually can lead to the sale, right? So I love that. It resonated back to me to when you were giving sales training to our teams, 25 years ago, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and you're right. It's every no gets you closer to a yes. So the more you can get in the frame of mind, oh, I just got to know. Okay, cool. So I must be closer to a yes. And then using the concept that Jas recommended to just sort people. If they say no, that just means not now. But yes, eventually, there's a reason to delete people and put them in that sorting bucket as well.